Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving straight into something that honestly feels less like your standard environmental report and way more like an urgent intelligence briefing. Today, we're looking at a city that has rapidly transformed, standing right at this terrifying intersection where Hollywood sci-fi meets a very real urban crisis.
You know that thick, orange-tinted smog from dystopian movies like Blade Runner? Well, contrast that Hollywood fiction with the very real, very dangerous atmospheric decay currently blanketing Kathmandu right now in March 2026. This isn't CGI, guys. This is a daily reality for millions. And the data driving this is absolutely wild. Kathmandu's PM 2.5 levels, those are the microscopic, deeply harmful particles that get right into your lungs, are hitting 132 micrograms per cubic meter. That is literally 26 times the World Health Organization's safe limit. 26 times. Basically, just breathing the air in this region has become a severe health hazard. To understand why this is happening, we really need to look at the geographical mechanics trapping the city. Chapter 1, the suffocating lid effect. So why is it so bad? Well, Kathmandu sits in this unique bowl-shaped valley. Combine that physical trap with a total lack of winter rainfall, and you get what meteorologists call a lid effect. An inversion layer essentially forms an inescapable toxic canopy right over the city, literally pushing all the hazardous air back down to the ground. So what exactly is filling up that bowl? From above, it's massive plumes of black carbon. In March alone, over 1,200 active fire points were recorded across Nepal. And get this, a staggering 96% of these pre-monsoon forest fires are human-caused. Whether it's negligence or intentional land clearing, it's pumping massive amounts of transboundary haze straight into the atmosphere. But the assault isn't just coming from the forests. Down on the ground, the city is kind of choking itself out. Inside the valley, you have over 1,200 active brick kilns still burning low-grade coal. Because, upgrading to cleaner zigzag technology is expensive. Throw in 1.75 million vehicles, 80% of which are two-wheelers, by the way, and you get endless gridlocks spewing exhaust right into this trapped environment. And this toxic air doesn't just mess with what residents breathe, it drastically alters the very temperature of the city. Chapter 2, Inside the Heat Bubble. The crucial point here is how all this unchecked gray infrastructure has generated an intense urban heat island effect. Even when pre-monsoon rains keep the surrounding outskirts relatively moderate, the concrete-dense city core inside the ring road is baking. It's running 1 to 4 degrees Celsius hotter than its surroundings. The city is literally trapping heat inside its paved surfaces. And the natural cooling mechanisms? They've been systematically eradicated. Back in 2014, the valley had a pretty meager 2.34% open space. By 2025, that plummeted to just 0.5%. To put that in perspective, the UN recommends a city should have 15 to 20% open green space to fight off this exact heat effect. Kathmandu's target for 2035, a tiny 5 to 7%. This is happening because Kathmandu's urban area has rapidly exploded to 49.45 square kilometers. Over the last 50 years, the city expanded 2.5 times over, completely paving over vital wetlands and green spaces. They essentially replaced natural evaporative cooling with heat-retaining concrete and asphalt. But, we can't just look at this from a satellite view. This macro-level data translates to horrific micro-level suffering. Chapter 3, Ground Zero, Thapathali's Health Crisis. Take Saltu Mukhya, for example. He lives in the Thapathali informal settlements right along the Bagmati River. And the reality there is bleak. His family is suffering from severe waterborne illnesses, and they simply can't afford hospital care. It's a devastating emotional anchor that grounds all these high-tech data overlays in actual, lived reality. And his individual suffering points to a massive systemic failure. With the urban poverty rate rising to 18.3%, over 150,000 squatters in the country are left entirely defenseless. In Kathmandu alone, a quarter of these marginalized families are trapped in informal settlements, facing a lethal convergence of toxic air, extreme heat, and raw sewage pumped directly into where they live. Because the rivers have essentially become sewage dumping sites, these forgotten settlements have turned into deadly public health hotspots. We are seeing an explosive rise in communicable diseases. We're talking over 56,000 confirmed dengue cases recently, including 88 fatalities, right alongside rising cholera infections. And it makes sense when you realize all 7 tributaries of the Bagmati River in the valley are severely polluted. If we zoom back out, the nationwide toll is just staggering.
Air pollution is now linked to over 42,500 deaths every single year. And economically, this environmental collapse is draining the country. It's resulting in an estimated 6.1% annual GDP loss because of reduced labor productivity, massive healthcare burdens, and the hit to tourism.
To further emphasize just how bad this health burden is, research from the NPRC journal reveals that chronic exposure to this air is causing massive spikes in respiratory diseases, and it's heavily impacting outdoor workers. Traffic police and street vendors are facing a 30% higher cardiovascular risk simply by doing their jobs in this toxic soup. So with all this data, you have to ask, why isn't it being fixed? Why are the systems failing?
Chapter 4: The Policy Paradox and Governance Glitch. The short answer? This systemic failure stems from a deeply rooted, fragmented governance nightmare. You have a $52 million World Bank credit aimed at clean air, yet the impact is barely noticeable. Why? Because environmental policies from one ministry are actively undermined by fiscal policies from another, like the Ministry of Finance messing with taxes on electric vehicles. Plus, rampant corruption at testing centers means about 40% of vehicles parading around with a mandatory green sticker actually fail basic emissions tests. It's wild. But hey, there is a glimmer of hope emerging from local governance. The Kathmandu metropolis has recently announced a new technology-driven waste management strategy. By dividing the city into a 7-cluster circular economy, bringing in mechanized material recovery, and deploying transparent online tracking apps for citizens, they're attempting to finally bypass all that structural gridlock. Ultimately, though, researchers and public health professionals argue that a fundamental pivot has to happen. We can no longer afford reactive healthcare, just treating the sick after the fact. Nepal must adopt a health in all policies approach. This means every single decision in transport, energy, and urban planning has to be held directly accountable for its public health outcomes. Which leaves us with one final pressing question. With the Rashtriya Swatanta Party, the RSP, now leading a single majority government, the political momentum is definitely there, but expectations are sky high. Will they be able to enforce building codes, rationalize transport, and execute these sweeping health-first policies to pass this ultimate urban governance test? Or will the suffocating dystopian fiction of Kathmandu 2026 solidify into a permanent, inescapable reality? That is the question the entire region is waiting to see answered. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.